Hi kids, welcome to YouTube, to Miss Nancy's Bible College for Kids. I'm glad to have you, thank you. Today's lesson is in the Old Testament, in the first book of the Bible, Genesis, in chapter 41. And it's just a wonderful reminder to say that if God says something's going to come true, it's going to come true. So he's coming back for us. Jesus is coming back for the church. God said it and it's going to happen. So I encourage you, be ready. Let's go ahead and get started. It came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine and fat flesh. Now this is cows. And they fed in the meadow. That don't sound like a bad dream. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean flesh. They looked like they were starving to death, kids. And they stood by the other kine upon the brink of the river. And the ill-favored and lean flesh kine did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat kine. So Pharaoh awoke, and he slept and dreamed the second time. And behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk, rank and good. And this is how Miss Nancy got this idea for the story. I was working in our garden this year, and we was planting corn, and I started thinking about this story. And kids, I can't remember it growing up, but maybe you've been in a church where you have, but I love this story, so let's go on. Anyway, he slept and dreamed the second time, and behold, 7 ears of corn came up on one stalk, rank and good. And behold, 7 thin ears, and blasted with the east wind, sprung up after them. And the 7 thin ears devoured, that means it ate the 7 rank and full ears. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt, and all the wise men thereof. And Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. Then spake the chief butler. Now, on my radio broadcast, we've had this story about the butler and the baker before. So we'll have to go back, and maybe your parents will read that to you. But then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. He remembered something. Pharaoh was wroth with his servants, and put me in ward in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker. And we dreamed a dream in one night, I and he. We dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And there was there with us a young man, a Hebrew, servant to the captain of the guard, and we told him, and he interpreted to us our dreams. To each man according to his dream did he interpret. And it came to pass, as he interpreted to us, so it was. Me he restored to mine office, and him he hanged. That was a sad story. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon. And he shaved himself and changed his raiment and came in unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. And I have heard say of thee that thou canst understand a dream to interpret it. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, In my dream, behold, I stood upon the bank of a river. And behold, there came out of the river 7 kine, fat-fleshed and well-favored, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them, poor and very ill-favored and lean-fleshed, such as I never saw in all the land of Egypt for badness. And the lean and the ill-favored kine did eat up the first 7 fat kine. And when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them, but they were still ill-favored as at the beginning, so I woke. And I saw my dream, and behold, 7 ears came up in one stalk, full and good. That's what I prayed for my garden when I was planting it, by the way. And behold, 7 ears withered, thin, and blasted with east wind, sprung up after them. And the thin ears devoured the 7 good ears. And I told this unto the magicians, but there was none that could declare it to me. And Joseph said to Pharaoh, The dream of Pharaoh is one, God hath showed Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good kine are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one. And the 7 thin and ill-favored kine that came up after them are 7 years. And the 7 empty ears blasted with the east wind shall be 7 years of famine. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he sheweth unto Pharaoh. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. And there shall arise after them 7 years of famine. And kids, I want to explain, famine means that there is no food to be had. It's a time of starvation. And all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. And the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of the famine following, for it shall be very grievous. And for that dream was double unto Pharaoh twice, it is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up a 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. And let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up corn, there it is, under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. And that food shall be for store for the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all of his servants. And Pharaoh said to his servants, Can we find such a one as this, a man in whom is the Spirit of God? And Pharaoh said to Joseph, Forasmuch as God had showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. So he gave him a position of second in charge. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, See, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand, and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him to ride in the 2nd chariot which he had. And they cried before him, Bow the knee. And he made him ruler over the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called, here he's going to change Joseph's name. In the Bible, things change, even people's names. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath-Paneah, and he gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land in Egypt. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. I want to pause right there a minute and say 30 years old is when Jesus started his earthly ministry. And Joseph is one, if not the best, type of Christ in the Old Testament. So I just threw that in there. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt. And in the 7 plenteous years, the earth brought forth by handfuls. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities. The food of the field which was round about every city laid he up in the same. And Joseph gathered corn, and I love this statement, guys, and this is what I'm hoping for my garden. You can help me pray about it. And Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, very much, until he left numbering it, which means it was so much he couldn't count it no more, for it was without number. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bare unto him. Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God said, He had made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And the name of the second was called Ephraim, and this is why. For God hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. And the 7 years of plenteousness that was in the land of Egypt were ended. Well, kids, you know what comes next. And the 7 years of dearth began to come, according as Joseph had said, and the dearth was in all the lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. And when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, Go unto Joseph, what he saith to you, do. Also, that was said by Jesus' mother, Mary, one time, when the first miracle in Cana. She said, whatever he says to do, do. Man, that's good advice right there. We need to take heed. And the famine was over all the face of the earth. And Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians, and the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And all the countries came into Egypt to Joseph. Can you imagine why? For to buy corn, because that the famine was so sore in all the land. Guys, God has always got enough. He's always got plenty, actually. All you have to do is ask him. Sometimes it might look lean, but he never forgets us. He never does. He sees what we're going through, and he knows. So let's get on with the questions and answers. Hope you guys get every one of them right. What was Pharaoh standing by in the dream? By a river. And what did Pharaoh see come up out of the river? 7 fat kine. And then what come up? 7 ill-favored and lean-fleshed kine. And then what happened? The 7 ill-fleshed and skinny ones ate the big fat ones. Could you tell the difference? No. And when Pharaoh woke up, what happened then? He went back to sleep and had another dream, didn't he? What was that dream all about? He saw 7 ears of corn, on one stalk, rank and good. I bet you if you bit into it, that juice would just squirt. I'm just thinking. Then what happened? He saw 7 thin ears come up, blasting with the east wind. And what did the thin ears do to the fat, juicy ears? It ate them all up. Could you tell a difference? No, you still couldn't tell the difference. How did Pharaoh feel in the morning when he woke up? He was troubled in spirit, wasn't he? What did Pharaoh do then? He did what a lot of the men in the Bible did. He sent for the magicians and the wise men. Could they answer what his dream meant? Nope. Who spoke up then? The chief butler. And what did he do? He remembered. He said, oh, man, I remember my faults this day. Okay, well, we'll go on. He said, what? He said, me and the chief baker, we was down there in a ward in the captain's guardhouse, and there was a young Hebrew man there. And what did he say had happened? He said each one of them dreamed a dream in the same night. And he said when they told that young Hebrew man, what did he do? He interpreted both of their dreams for them. What happened to each one? The chief butler, he was restored to his position because he's still here. But the other one, the chief baker, what happened to him? They hung him, didn't they? And what did Pharaoh do then? He sent and called for Joseph, didn't he? And then what did Joseph do before he came in, before Pharaoh? He shaved and cleaned himself up because he'd been down in the dungeon, hadn't he? When Pharaoh told Joseph that he had heard he could interpret his dream, what did Joseph reply? He said, it ain't me. He said, it's the Lord that will give you an answer of peace, Pharaoh. What did Pharaoh tell to Joseph then? His 2 dreams. And what did Joseph tell Pharaoh? He said, the 2 dreams, they're really one. And why did he say that God had gave it to him like that? He said, because it's a sure thing and it's fixing to happen. So, what did the 7 good kine mean? And then what did the 7 big, fat, full ears of corn mean? That there was going to be plenty in the land together, wasn't there? But then the 7 ill-favored kine, lean-fleshed, starving to death looking, and the 7 ears of corn that was blown by the east wind and dried up. What did they both mean? 7 years of famine, no food. What was Joseph's advice to Pharaoh? He said, you pick out a man, discreet and wise, and set him over the land. Then he told him to gather of the food and how much of it was he supposed to put in store every time through these 7 good years. 1/5. And so he did. But why did Pharaoh pick Joseph for the job? He said, the Lord sent you. You've got the spirit of him in you. and he showed you this, and he said, I can't find nobody better than you. So what position did Joseph get? He got second in command, didn't he? What's some other things that happened with him? He got a ring put on him. Pharaoh actually took his ring and gave it to him. He put a gold chain around his neck. He rode in the second chariot, and everybody that saw him would bow the knee, and he got dressed in fine linen, didn't he? Another type of Christ in some of that. When Pharaoh changed Joseph's name, what did he change it to? And if you get this, you deserve a reward. Zaphnath-Paneah. I don't even know for sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but who or what did he give Joseph after he changed his name to Zaphnath-Paneah? He gave him Asenath, the daughter of the first priest of On. And how old was Joseph when all this happened? 30 years old, remember? The same age as Christ when he started his earthly ministry. And what happened in the first 7 years? The earth brought forth plentiful, didn't it? And what's a fascinating statement that Joseph said about the corn when he was counting it? He said it was the sand of the seashore. It was so much they had to quit counting, didn't he? How many sons did Joseph have before the famine began? 2. Can you name them? One was Manasseh. And what did that mean? He made me forget all my toil and my father's house. And the other one was Ephraim. And that meant God caused him to be very fruitful. And then when the 7 years of plenty ended, what started? The 7 years of famine. And when all the land was famished, why did all the people from the other countries come to Joseph to buy corn? Well, maybe in a little while I'll tell you how my corn did, but until then, remember guys, this is a vision from the Lord, and it happened then, and Jesus is coming back. And remember, to get saved, you have one requirement, and that's that you got to know that you're a sinner. The Bible tells us we're all sinners, that we've all come short of the glory of God, and there's only one name under heaven whereby we must be saved, and that's the name of Jesus Christ. He said, I am the way, I'm the door. So all you got to do is come through him. You ask him to come into your heart and save you, and he promises, I will not turn you away. Why would he? He died for you on that cross, was buried, and arose the third day according to the Bible. So I hope you guys are all ready to go. It could be today. I'll see you next time on YouTube. Bye, kids.